right now, we're going to be taking a deeper look at the Hamas threat, which we've just been talking about, the ideology behind the terror group, a group that aims to annihilate Jews. Yaron Avraham grew up as an Israeli Arab. His family sent him to be educated at the most radical mosque in Gaza, and a few years later he did the unthinkable. He decided to convert to Judaism and serve in the Israeli army. Our French senior defense correspondent Matthias Inbar has his story. Let's take a look.
I was 9 years old. One of my sisters, who was 16, was murdered by my brothers in the name of so-called family honor. A murder inside the house. I was a child. I didn't see it happen. It was in the next room. But we heard everything. I knew what had happened there. You can imagine what a night it was. Very cruel, very difficult. She was the one I was closest to out of all my siblings. I started asking questions. What happened to her? Where did she go? What did you do to her? And as soon as I started asking questions, they felt in danger and decided to get me away from the house. They probably felt threatened by my question, didn't want me to know what happened. They knew I heard and saw some things that night, so they probably felt it was putting them at risk.
And here, your parents decided to send you in the 1980s or so to a mosque, the most difficult mosque.
That's right, they sent me to Gaza. I don't know if they knew the level of education in this mosque, or if they simply wanted to get rid of me. I found myself in a mosque, one of the most extreme in Gaza. There, I began to get a very radical education, which was supposed to prepare me for a martyr's death, what we call becoming a shaheed. By all means necessary. I mean, it's a very cruel education, very difficult. Most of it is structured around death. You're forced to remember every morning that your ultimate goal is to return to the ground as quickly as possible. So it's walking in cemeteries, being taken to see terrorists killed by the IDF, kissing them, their hands, their feet, to get inspiration, so that we want to be killed like them. The highlight of this training, we were all 13 or 14, taking us in groups. They'd make us lay in a real grave for 10 to 15 seconds while they stand over us and read aloud verses from the Quran to inspire us, to evoke the feeling of the moment of ascension, when the soul rises to heaven. Half of us almost didn't make it out of there because we were so scared. Personally, it took me almost 15 years to get over that experience.
What you're telling is something unbelievable. And I've even heard in another interview that it is so radical that they can even commit murder in front of your eyes.
L'éducation est tellement radicale et tellement djihadiste.
There was an incident in which two children, 13-year-old boys, who were suspected of being intimate with each other. At around 4 a.m., we were pulled out of our beds. They explained to us what the kids were accused of. Then they just cut their heads off right in front of us. They did this to make an example out of them, to instill fear. This thing we witnessed, to normal people, it sounds very extreme, but we lived in an environment of death. Islam is a religion that sanctifies death. Certainly, for this group, many actions are punishable by death. And from their point of view, two boys being inappropriately intimate or doing such things inside the mosque, this is something they cannot stand. This is one of the most severe offenses in Islam. It's not a thing of the past, it's still happening to this day. People still flee Gaza and the West Bank over this. Even Israeli Arabs who have these different inclinations, they run away from home. And if they are caught, they are punished immediately. 3 to 4 months ago, a girl who took part in the Pride Parade was murdered at the entrance of her village as soon as she returned from the parade. This happened inside of Israel. So in Gaza, in a mosque like this, it's not regarded as extreme. This is what I'm trying to convey. This is the message, that these things there are not seen as extreme. They advocate death, and it also links to what we saw on October 7th. This cruelty did not surprise me. I was surprised they succeeded, but not what they've done. I don't want to shock you, but what happened on October 7th is not even the height of their cruelty. They have many, many more methods. They hate Jews simply because they are Jews. There's no other reason. They say it's because of the occupation? In the Quran, it's written that the land of Israel was given to the people of Israel. In the Quran, not in the Bible. We were taught blind hatred with no rhyme or reason. It's just a religious matter. So what's behind such hate? It's because of their bigotry.
Alors justement, parce qu'on va y venir.
And you came out with Jewish and religious symbols. You come out of this nightmare, there's no other word, and you say to yourself, I want to be a fighting soldier, a combat soldier in the Givati brigade serving in Gaza.
L'unité Givati dans Gaza.
The first thing I wanted to do when I left, the first thing I did, is to study Judaism. I discovered something that was completely new to me, something that in Judaism in Israel and in general in the Western world is taught from a young age, the sanctity of life. I discovered that I'm allowed to live, I am allowed to dream. Jews took me in. They didn't ask questions, didn't care if I was Arab or not. They just let me stay in their home. They gave me food. They kept me safe from all my brothers, kept me safe from dangers. These people instilled in me confidence, a certainty that I am a human being like any other, taught me the sanctity of life, which means go learn, go grow, go be a human being, go to the beach, have friends. I didn't even know how to thank them. I didn't know how to behave with ordinary people, how to have a conversation with them. I didn't even know how to eat, because there you eat in a certain way. I didn't know how to hold a knife or a fork. They had to teach me everything starting from scratch.
Cette photo, elle vous dit quoi?
When you see soldiers inside the Gaza Strip, what does that do to you?
À Gaza.
It makes me want to be there. I would like to come full circle, to go there now as a human being who sanctifies life. The same earth I smelled from the grave, I want to smell it today, wearing tefillin, holding the Israeli flag. I left that place. I literally left the grave. Today, I have a family. I'm alive. I have a mission to bring the truth to light.
En tant que soldat.
You told me right before we started that you were 500 meters from Shifa Hospital as a Givati soldier. At that moment, what do you say to yourself?
I was still very angry about what I went through. I was still very angry. But I knew I am on the right side. The goal of the Jewish soldier is not to murder, not to kill. We see it even now. Soldiers risk themselves to give children in Gaza water, as we saw a couple of days ago, to give them food, to give them an opportunity to escape, an opportunity to leave, an opportunity to keep themselves safe. What the Muslims didn't do on October 7th, they didn't give anyone a chance to stay safe, didn't give women a chance to escape. They did horrible things to women, children, babies in front of their families. That's the difference. Me, whether in the past, when I was in the army, today, and even now as I'm in the reserves, I stand for the people who sanctify life. I want to fight for the truth. The problem is with this radical Islam, which is also spreading in Europe and in other places. And I know for a fact that those who are currently protesting in Europe are not the Europeans. It's not the Europeans who are against Israel. It's the Arabs who are against Israel. For years, and during the Guardian of the Walls, I have been warning anyone who would listen that they are capable of the horrors we saw them commit last month. People didn't believe me. They told me I'm exaggerating, that it's not possible, that they are not capable of such things. These days, I tell people in Europe, in the US, and in other places to be careful, to stay safe and keep their children safe, keep their daughters safe. They are saying in interviews that they want Sharia law, they want Islamic law. They will not move from this. In Islam, the sanctity of the land is greater than the sanctity of life. Every place they reach, they see as Muslim territory. Anywhere, not only in Israel. People think this is Israel's problem. People should thank Israel. The world should stand up for the right of Israel because Israel is fighting the war of the whole world. Israel is fighting for the sanctity of life.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much for being with us.
It was a pleasure.